I think we're officially live.
We're live. I love
Here we
live
are just
videos.
trying to figure crap out, right?
Yeah, but I love live videos though because it just gives us so much opportunity to be with people. We can see a live chat here too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And people can join in the chat as well. So as we're chatting, please feel free to like ask questions, comment, things like that. And we'll try and stay up with both as we chat. But Sarah and I have so many things to talk about, so much overlap in the way that we see the world, but yet we're leading our lives in very different ways. And I love that for all of us. Yeah,
I'm
if you could
turning my
not knock stuff over, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'm
Just,
turning it on do not disturb. I forgot. All right.
it's so good. Okay, Sarah, do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh my gosh, yes. Okay, so I am the Sarah Elise, Sarah Johnson, and I I have a lot of certifications. Let me just preface with this. I have a lot of certifications and I've got my bachelor's degree, all this stuff, but there has been a through line my entire life, and it's always come to mind, body, soul. I've always known everything has been interconnected. And I would look at the things I've experienced in my life, and I'm like, hmm, I don't think I really need a certification because what actually certifies me is my experience. And I wanted to just share this overarching theme. Obviously, Carly, as you and I have bantered back and forth, and we're like, our lives overlap in so many different ways. What do people need to hear from us? And it is permission to expand, right? Giving ourselves permission. So I, there's a lot of things that I could do to introduce myself. I'm a mom of four. I live in Texas. I love motherhood. And at the same time, it's one of the hardest things ever that we've been through. Uh, but there's a lot. There's a lot. I think right now the biggest thing is I am in this beautiful phase of leaving healing because so much of my life was healing, healing, healing. And now it's the becoming, the actual living piece of everything that I've gone through.
I love that. Yeah, so I have a similar thread where like I spent an awful lot of time in college, but because of so many different things that played out in my life, I never ended up with a certification of any sort from like no diploma from college anywhere, even though I spent enough time there, I probably ought to have had one, you know. But the rules and the checklists that were required to get it were ones that I just never met. And it didn't matter how much effort I put into it or whatever was going on. Like there were always these circumstances outside of my control that kind of kept it like farther and farther away from me. And isn't that a thread that we could follow one day? But it's interesting to me because there is a like education has always been so important to me. It's been something that has always called to me, and the digging deeper of but why and how and when and who told you and why is it this way and all of the questions that come up. And for most of my life, the answers were always canned. They were always the same thing. Right. And it was like, oh, you have this question, here's this answer. And I would ask a question and somebody who was listening to me would like change the question slightly so that they could answer it in the way that they wanted to. And so I was like, but that's not actually what I'm getting at here. And I try and pull at those threads and things like that. And so similar to you, I have four children. I live in the state of Washington, so we're in different states, but we have four kids. I also love motherhood. I also fully choose being a woman and being a mother and a wife, and I love this. And also, there's an awful lot more to me than just those things. And I feel deeply that God gave me those things and that they need to be shared and, brought about in the world in whatever way that needs to happen. And so I also carry an awful lot of certifications and I do a lot of work with women, both individually and in groups and in a lot of other spaces. And it's something that has always called to me to circle with women, but I was also terrified of them because I was taught that women were scary. And I was taught that women were catty and women had to like fight each other and compete and were always immature and all of these things. And so I never really dug into female friendships because I was better than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was too good for that, right? And then it took me being a full mother with several kids before I was like, but actually, I need women.
Mm.
I need women in my life. I need to circle with women. I need to gather with women. And then I started pulling at the threads of all these other things and recognizing like I've been told to stay away from women
Yeah.
through so many different avenues of my life. And nobody said to me, "Hey, you should stay away from other women. You should never talk to other women." Nobody said that. But there were so many different threads that I picked up and so much nuance in conversations and so many things like between the words that made me feel like it was unsafe
Oh,
to
it's dangerous.
actually, yes,
Hmm.
to be
Hmm.
with other women. And it just has also been the thing that has healed me. And so it's just, and I use that very loosely, right? But like there's been so much of my life that has just become so much better as I have looked at the way that I understood I was supposed to live and said, that doesn't work for me. I'm going to try this. And when I have led from like the part of me that knows better, it's always panned out in a way that fills me and my family and my life in a better, more fulfilling way than when I followed the direction that somebody else gave me and said, you should do this. Now,
Yeah.
that doesn't mean to say like I just was like never listening to other people. Like, yes, I want to have their feedback. I want to understand how my actions affect them as well. But when
Mhm.
I actually go to make the decision, when I do it from a place of like my own heart versus what they think I should do, it always pans out better. And I
Mm.
just think a lot of women who grow up with like within the soup that we grew up in
Yeah.
are taught that that's not theirs to choose. It's not it's not an option.
It's not an option. And what you were talking about, I've always been a questioner too. I've always wanted the deeper truth. I definitely feel like I am the type of person that has been the truth seeker and I've been a pattern finder. And these small little threads of proving my worth came forward over and over and over again. That even if people told me how to live, or even if there was something that I desired, but it was against the box that I had put myself in, there was no way it could be true for me. Like I would fight against myself. I would fight against the truth that I was feeling and then the truth of what somebody else was telling me. Right. And let me just say, there is truth to this piece, and there was truth to this piece. So where could I find the sacred in between?
Mm.
Like that was, I'm gonna get emotional. I struggled so much because I'm like, but parts of in our background, right? The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, parts of this is true, yet parts of me are dying, essentially. Like parts of me literally were dying because I was suppressing so much. And these parts of me weren't coming through that I really wanted. People weren't seeing the full, authentic expression of who Sarah was, of how I lived my life. And I felt so incredibly caged in a variety of ways. Caged by phrases that people would say, caged by even an institution. And I am not, I think both you and I, Carly, are here to tell people not what to believe, right? We never will tell people what to believe or what is right or true, but it will always come back to this question: what is true for you? Like, what is true for me? When I finally gave myself permission to be like, whoa, 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 Sarah, what is true for me? Not what is the truth. What is true for me? And I had to sit with that. By the way, is there feedback on my end? Can you hear
I
that?
don't hear it. Do you hear it?
I hear me talking back, so that's why I'm a little slower. But will whoever's watching, would you mind just seeing if there's a feedback loop? Uh, but it goes back to that, like, what is true for me? Asking a question, and then this is my. You touched on this too, Car. The phrase of "Who told you that?" Like, why? I was that annoying kid. I was like, but why? But why?
Same. Same. I
I,
still am that annoying kid.
I know. Like, give
Okay,
me
sounds like
the
they're saying there's a tiny bit of feedback.
Okay. Shoot. Let me just turn this down a
I'm
little
not
bit
sure
and see
why.
if that helps. Okay. Let me know if that's better.
Thank you, by the way, for the feedback. That's really helpful.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. We'll see if that's a little better. Uh, okay. Where were we at?
Sorry, annoying kids asking why.
Yes. Why? So yeah, I still am that annoying kid of like, well, why? Why? I want more information. And for a long time, I feel like I justified not knowing a why. Does that
Mm-hmm.
make sense? Where it's like, you're not supposed to know everything. We're not supposed to know everything in this life. I understand that. And am I just too closed off to a bigger why? Maybe.
It's a
I
good
don't know.
question. What's funny is I was kind of the opposite, where I would ask the questions, and then if people couldn't answer them, I would find a way to apologetically get there.
Mhm.
Like I could come up with like, okay, if that's true and this is how I feel, then like, what if we take this route? We might eventually like get there. And I could often do it. And I was so good at it. I was so good at making sense of the things that didn't make sense because I got really creative in the what if.
Mm,
And I really like that's the place I love to play in though, is like the what if, the creation of like, how do we get there? And what I found this when it got to the point where I was talking like truth claims and I was talking about all of these other things, it was like it forced me back into a box. And instead I've started to practice in the play of like, what if I follow this path and I don't have to get back here? What then? Where does it take me if I don't have to end right here? And the possibilities that has opened up for me was at the very same time like insanely liberating and absolutely terrifying
right.
because it shifted everything that I knew to be true, right? And so when
Mhm.
you talked about what's your truth and what's my truth, like it makes me question, like what do we mean when we say truth? Like are we talking about like a historical fact, or are we talking about this is for us to do, right?
Yeah.
This is the path I'm supposed to walk. Or are we talking like a fact that's, like a provable fact? And I
Mm-hmm.
think that sometimes the word true or truth does an awful lot of heavy lifting.
Yeah.
And then we kind of get at each other's throats when we're like, but that's not what that means. And that's not what I mean. And you know what I mean? Like we're using this word to mean so many things. And then we get mad when the other person uses it with a different definition.
Oh my gosh. Yes. It brings in contention in a way, right? It brings in
You're
like
right.
a disconnect, and we don't want to have a disconnect. But I really loved what you just said, because recognizing the universal truths of us as human beings and as spirit beings, I think is so vitally important in the fact of, what do we all innately have? What are we, like, literally, what is our purpose here on earth? And for me, knowing, and I will say, I believe that a lot of people's purpose is supposed to be different. I don't believe that just everybody here is supposed to grow and become and develop and be a leader. I want to, and I do definitely think the people in my field are supposed to be, but we all have a different purpose. And mine specifically, recognizing everything that I have been through in my life, it is to grow and to become. Like, this iteration of Sarah has helped for this iteration of Sarah to be born. And this evolution of Sarah is helping this next evolution of Sarah. And it's recognizing, not recognizing, giving honor to all those parts of me, right? All the parts, all the values of who I am, of what I choose and how I choose to live my life. Like, I hope that people will be able to look at me. And this is how I have strived my whole life, to see people beyond a religion, to see people beyond size, to see people beyond what they're wearing, to see people beyond their outer appearance and see them for their soul. Like, see the deeper truth of who they are, recognizing we have a lot more in common than we even think we do. Like, I don't even know where I was going with that, but that's just, it's allowing us to love each other, actually love each other on a soul level, instead of trying to say, I'm right, you're wrong, this is truth, this is air. Like, what if there just wasn't that? What if there was, what if there was just love? You know what I mean?
Yes, I totally know what you mean, but it's like, it's so hard to have that conversation without a certain level of deconstruction
Yeah.
within, particularly with like a high expectation religion, right? Which again, you and I both have worked through that process in so many different ways. And like, there's a lot of people that were never affiliated with anything like that, that have an easier time getting there than those of us who, from like literally in the womb, were taught that this is the path, this is the only path, this is the true path, this is like everything else is wrong and therefore evil and therefore damnation, right?
Yeah.
So, but when you actually live in a world where you interface with people who were not given that same script, and you see that they actually are having joy, they are actually still loving their families, that they actually are still contributing to the world in beautiful ways, that they actually are finding peace and love and joy and making decisions that make the world a better place without having God tell them to do so.
Yes.
It's wild when you suddenly see that
Mhm.
and go, but wait, I was told the only way was through this filter.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then to have the possibility to like even consider, what if I take that filter off
Yeah.
and I see them for what they're doing? Because that filter was my like oxygen mask,
Yeah. No, it really
right?
was. Mhm.
It was what literally kept me alive and kept me in my place.
Yeah.
Which is another thread to pull at, but like, it's just, it's interesting because somehow, somewhere, I had to decide that I had the permission to remove that filter, to just see.
Yeah.
And nobody could give me that permission.
Mhm.
But I still, like I said before, like I had to kind of go a roundabout way to get back there. Like, I feel like part of me getting there was still saying, well, I want to learn about this thing, and this person's talking about this thing, and they might not be like as church correlated, but like they're talking about things that I haven't learned about before,
Mhm.
and it's going to help me come back here.
Yeah.
And in the process of doing that, I could make sense of like why it would be okay for me to try that on, why it would be okay to do this. And I can even hear like myself inside go like, oh, see, they warned you it was a slippery slope, right? Like all of this stuff, like I can still feel and hear that.
Yeah.
And also, I have never, ever felt more at peace or more close to God and a higher power ever in my life
Yeah.
than when I chose my own spiritual path. Never, ever.
Goosebumps. Yes.
And also, my physical health is better. My mental health is better. My relationships with my family are better. My marriage is outstanding,
Yeah.
even when we believe different things.
Mhm. Mm.
But
Mhm.
instead, I was taught that if that were the case, then damnation. No more eternal family. No more, like it's just, it's wild to see like the way that it was handed to me, and then me looking at it and going, but that's not what I'm experiencing.
Yeah.
So
It's a
you can
complete.
tell me this all the time, but it's not feeling real, because it this and all of this out here are not the same.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. The This is kind of circling back to what you said at the beginning, but I was afraid, like before giving myself permission to expand, permission to question, permission to do something completely different than what I was taught. I felt so much fear in what I was going to lose. That makes sense, where it's like I was afraid I would lose my marriage. And to say it has been an easy road, because I have completely stepped away from the church and my husband is still active in the church. We've talked about this. But that is something that we've had to work for. And I was so deathly afraid that I would lose that, or even lose relationships, my friendships, which I have lost a lot of friendships. And I've also been able to recognize, like, they have served a time, they have served me, they have served a purpose. And I am going to just bless and release if that isn't a mutual friendship no longer. That's also had a lot of grief, right? Community from the church. Like, there are a whole bunch of different things that I have genuinely had to grieve and go through the full grief cycle. But I also, because of my closeness with a higher power, I was like, I don't think God would want me to fear uncertainty. Because if you think about this from an expanded, zoomed out perspective, even inside of the church, everything that we are taught, we taught as if we know it, but it still is under the basis of uncertainty. The second coming, celestial marriage, right? Everything is still uncertain, yet filmed through a certain lens from a prophet, from somebody else, not even directly correlated with revelation to me directly from God. And I was like, God doesn't want me to fear. The God that I know, the God that I love, the God that I have a relationship with, the guidance that I receive has never been out of fear. It has always been rooted in that love. And I don't think I've actually ever shared this with you, Carly, but this permission, I'm going to go here. Okay. We're going here.
Let's do it.
I was in the temple and I knew that this was actually going to be my last time going to the temple. I was in the celestial room with my husband, and I just looked at him and I said, this is the last time I'm coming to the temple. And he had known for a few months that I was struggling. And when somebody struggles with this, oftentimes we double down, right? We go to the temple more, we read our scriptures more, we pray more, we actually kneel in prayer. We turn off all the noise from the outside. If anybody is telling, anybody who's left the church already, like, I completely shut off everybody so that I could just focus in on my relationship with God, with the church where I was at. And I was in the celestial room and I told him, I was like, this is my last time I'm coming to the temple. And I kid you not, the words that I heard was, Sarah, I give you permission to be free. And Carly, that moment for me of like being so caged in to then just being like, oh my gosh, I've had this chain that I didn't even know I was attached to for so long, even though it's like, I know, I give you permission to be free. That I could have interpreted that in so many ways. And obviously I have since, but that permission to be free, what does that even mean? Right? I like, thank you. And is there more? But no, that was it. I give you permission to be free. And from that moment forward, that's when I started feeling the bravery. That's when I started feeling the courage and confidence to be like, what does a free Sarah look like? How is she behaving? How is she modeling her life? How is she living her life? And that's the evolution that people are witnessing right now. Is like, I want to be free. And I visually see the boxes and the cages that we all put ourselves in time and time again. It is really, even outside of religion, yes, that's a box, but in marriage, we can put ourselves into a box, right? In friendships, we can put ourselves into a box. In social media, we put ourselves into a box. Like, that is the work that I do with women, is to help them uncage from these boxes, to figure out what has been conditioned, to figure out the deeper truth of who they are. What are their desires? What's their true expression? Where is the suppression and the depression taking place in their lives? Where is it showing up in their body? Like, that is the work that I do with women because I have had to do it myself.
Yeah.
You give yourself permission to be free. Like, yes, that came from God, but it's like you have to be the one to take the action, right? Scripture, taking this reference from an article that you wrote, Carly, of by your fruits you shall know them. We know that scripture. We are so familiar with that scripture. And yet, are we actually knowing them by their fruit and recognizing these patterns from women and people and recognizing their leadership and their primal instinct? Or are we trying to put their fruit in a box that only if they are checking X, Y, and Z and going to the temple and saying their prayers and wearing their garment, are they enough?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and you hit exactly on what I was getting at with that essay I wrote, right? That it doesn't matter how we do it, we're going to be wrong because the filter is always, are you enough? And when it comes to women, the answer is always going to be no. Always, always, always. And that is not a way to live. That's a way to slowly suffocate. And I just can't do that. I can't live that way. And so even in that article, and I still consider myself a member of the church. I still attend when it feels like the right thing to do. Some of my children still attend. I have a son who's planning on going on a mission. I'm still so intertwined in, I mean, it's the closest building out my window. Like it's right there. And yet, similar to you, so many of my answers came inside the actual temple. And as I looked for the answers that I was getting there, the answers I always got was, you will not find that here.
Mm.
You will not find that here. And one of the most beautiful things, and I've never actually told this story before. I think I might have told my husband, but I don't think I've told anybody else. I went in one day, and it was one of the last times I attended, and I had had a really, really hard day. It was very emotional. And I thought, I'm just going to go, even though I don't want to. I had already felt a tension there. And I was like, I'm going to go and I'm going to put on a good mindset. And I'm going to go find all of the ways that feminine energy shows up in this temple. And I was looking for symbols and I was looking for colors and I was looking for textures. Cause we all know like, whatever, but like
Symbols are strong.
I was looking for ways to find that connection because I wanted to see myself in the eternities. I wanted to see a path for me to continue. And I was desperately trying. And I went in and for those of you who are unaware, you walk in and you get changed into a white dress and white clothing, and then you go join the ceremony. And so I was in the dressing room and I was putting on this dress and it has a zipper up the back. And the zipper kind of gets stuck a little bit every once in a while. And so I was kind of just working with it and trying to, like shimmy that zipper up. And it got stuck. And there was nobody left in the dressing room. They were all gone. And I just sat there in the dressing room and just cried because I was stuck in a place in between and I couldn't get to where I was desperately trying to be. And then eventually I heard a sound of somebody kind of coming in and they just kind of came in and went back out. And then I was kind of left alone again. And I got so mad because I was stuck in my dress. I couldn't get it up. I couldn't get it down. I couldn't get it off. I couldn't get it on. Like I just was kind of in this in between. And I got so angry that I shoved my elbows down and literally tore it and ripped the back of my dress so that I could get out. And then I just sat there and cried because now I couldn't go in, but I couldn't get out. And I sat in that room and I just prayed for some way to see like a divine feminine something in this because it felt so suffocating. And what happened was one of the most beautiful experiences I'd ever had. Actually, in that moment, the last session, people started kind of coming into the dressing room to change to go back home. And I heard a voice of a woman that I recognized. And I just think she's one of the most dear humans I've ever known. And she heard that somebody was in the like she could hear me in the room. And I just said, "Hey," I said her name. And I said, "Do you by chance have a dress that I could wear?" And she said yes. And she got into a room and she changed and she brought me her dress. And I put on her dress and then I went into my session and I just cried and had other experiences there. But it was like, it was so clear to me that like the feminine connection I was looking for was not up there, and it was not in there. It wasn't. It was here. It was in the connection with the human women that I can touch and feel and see,
That's
and
sisterhood.
that sisterhood. That's what I needed. I desperately needed the women to be with and touch and see and hold. And she didn't ask any questions. She just brought it to me. And like that moment taught me so much. But also afterward, I looked at my torn dress and I knew that that dress was never coming back. But also I knew that I needed to keep searching. And that wasn't my last time in the temple, but it it opened my eyes to remembering that the human women in my life need to be a more constant, real experience, that I needed to be in relation to them in a very different way than I had been. And that's a lot of the work that I do too. So I love that like we had again these like parallel experiences. That I will never ever ever say that religion is not a good thing. I will never say that going to the temple is a problem. I will
Yeah.
never, you will never hear me say that because I don't believe it.
Yeah.
And yet, it is not for everyone in every period of their lives.
Yeah. Oh, Car.
That I will stand by.
I love that. I love that. The like as you were breaking open that dress, I just imagined this threshold that it's like I think all of us actually get to this point where we have to choose to stay where we are or walk through a different threshold, walk through a different portal that is going to help us expand, right? That it's like you could not have had that experience of recognizing I need sisterhood. I need to show up for women in a different way than I have been. Women show up for me in a different way than they have been. Like it is that community, right? I so strongly, this is for you. And I like people don't talk about this stuff. And if they do, then it's people who are anti-religion. But I'm like, I'm not that. And it's the same thing. I'm like, will I absolutely call things out? Yes. But am I anti? No. Do I want people to be happy? Do I want people to live in full authenticity and expression and find the beauty wherever they are at and whatever they choose to practice in? Yes. Do I believe that everybody should have a practice of sort? Yes. Like anything that can get you into your own temple too, right? Your body. That was a huge reclamation that I've had to go through is I always went to the temple instead of coming to the temple as if all the answers were outside of me, knowing that I already know. We already know, but are we brave enough to not let fear run the show, but let truth, right? Alignment, authenticity, love be the driver of the seat instead of the fear. Like, I think of sisterhood and communities that I've joined, communities that I have left. I want real sisterhood. I want to be able to see, to look at my sister Carly, to look at Sarah, to whoever else is here on, and be able to be like, I love you. And I do not need to know everything that you have gone through, except I am here to link arms with you side by side. We are in this together. I am not above you. I am not behind you. Like, we are in this together and we will fight together. Like, that is what sisterhood is. There's not danger in the relationship unless we see the danger in the relationship. And that goes to even just outside of sisterhood too, that it's in any relationship, even with your children, even like, you don't want to be the first bully to your children. You don't want to be a bully to your husband, right? You don't want to be the bully to yourself.
Yeah.
I don't know where I'm going with that, Carly, but it just needed to come out. Okay.
Listen, it fits. So we're gonna take it. It works. But yeah, it is. And I love that when you work with people, you do talk about that, like that uncaging and that coming out of the box, but also having a safe place to land. There's always this safety and this home. And then we venture out and we work on this, or we would go and we work on that. And we're doing it in a place where there is a true connection and safety, and also pressing into places that feel unknown.
Mhm.
And that is so potent. And it's, again, like I said, like these parallel journeys, the way that I work with women has a very similar feel.
Mhm.
It's very sisterhood. It's very collective energy. It's very like, bring what you have. And also, let's go somewhere new. Let's adventure. Let's find a place where you haven't tried yet.
Yeah.
Let's see what let's see what happens when we don't predetermine the ending. What
Mm.
if you just tried? What happens then? You know, it reminds me again of a time where I was actually teaching, my calling in the church was teaching temple prep, which was one of my favorite callings I've ever had. And I really, really loved it. But I wanted to dig into a little bit of the history of why it was set up the way that it was. And so I found this book that literally was just snippets of official letters and journals from presidents of the church. Like, there was no commentary, there was
Mhm.
nothing other than just like actual like historical documents.
Mhm.
And it just kind of allowed you to see how things changed and came about. And as I kind of shared some of these things, because I was teaching adults who had previously been through the temple. So it was
Mhm.
just like a further your knowledge, let's kind of study some different things. And after we talked about some of the changes and the alterations that were made over time, and some people were like, oh, well, maybe it happened like this because of this. And I was like, yeah, maybe that's possible. You know, like all it doesn't tell us why necessarily they did it. It just tells that it happened. You know, you can kind of see the thread. And one of the women after a class came up to me and just said, like, what resources are you using? And I told her, and I said, here's one of the books that I've looked at. And she looked at me with a little bit of fear,
Yeah.
and asked me, how do you read those kind of things when it's not like correlated material? Like, how do you study church history from a lens other than what the church puts out? And it's a valid
Valid.
question.
Yeah.
It's a really valid question. And I could see her and feel her. And I know that question well because I've been there. And also, several years prior to that, I had taken the opportunity to adventure for myself and learn things from a different side, a different way of seeing it. And that helped me make more conscientious decisions because I had a more full picture. And
Mhm.
what I actually loved about this particular book that I was using is that all of it, every word of it, was directly from official documentation. So it wasn't as if somebody was telling a story. It wasn't as if somebody was saying this
Oh,
means this and this means that. It was literally like the words of the leaders,
yeah,
the handbook words at the time. And I just it was kind of it was a little bit of a brain, you know,
yeah,
situation.
yeah.
I don't know how many swears we want to use on this right now, but like it was this really interesting twist in my head to consider that like we could look at this book that was literally only words of
Yeah.
leaders of the church and say that it's not safe to read.
Mhm.
And I thought, what are we even doing here?
Yeah.
What are we even doing here? And if I can't give myself permission to read that book, what what are we doing?
Yeah. We won't be doing, right? We'll just be doing what we're told to do. That, I mean, girl, that's a thread for so many of us of don't go into the danger zone of adventure. I like how you use that word actually.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go into the danger zone of adventure in reading things that are not resourced by the church. I mean, if I'm being honest, throughout my whole thing, that was a promise I made myself and throughout my deconstruction was I am not going to read a single thing that is not done by the church or that I don't have access to
Mm-hmm.
from the app or from the website
Right.
itself. Um, and I went in searching for truth. That was my intent from the very beginning is I'm a truth seeker. I'm going to search for truth. And as I found these things over and over and over again, it caused a lot of, I'm going to use this word, just disgust for me. That I was like, my body doesn't like this. And
Yeah.
then it tied into a lot of, and we've done a podcast over some of our health stuff that we've experienced. So
Mm-hmm.
you're watching the replay, go and listen to that podcast that we've done because both of us had a lot of health stuff. And I'm not saying it's because of the church, but in a place where I should have been most attuned to myself, I wasn't attuned to
Mm-hmm.
myself. I was attuned to the person I needed to be in order to survive. And that was because of my home environment. Church was my safe place. Um, I had to, we keep using this phrase, give yourself permission. Give yourself permission. And it could be so easy for me to tell people, like, well, okay, how do you give yourself permission?
Mm-hmm.
And as hard as this sounds, it is actually so simple to the fact of you have to take the adventure, right? You actually have to do the thing and follow the curiosity because that curiosity that you are experiencing is a teacher. It is a messenger coming from your soul. And it will only hurt you if you don't follow that thread of curiosity. It's like you said, like, well, what's the worst that could happen? But like, what if? What if me going on this adventure actually brings me to a firmer foundation, firmer testimony that the church is true? Great, right? What if it leads me down a different path and your spirituality becomes stronger than it was before in the church? Like, great. Nobody can tell you what path is the true path for you. Your soul has to be the one to speak to you. And you can only listen to it if you are attuned to your inner knowing. How do you do that? You give yourself permission. You go on
You
the
give
adventure.
yourself permission and you start listening
You
because your
start
body's been telling you things this whole time, but we've been so disembodied from it that we don't even know what the language of our body sounds like.
The language of the spirit. Can we go here for a
Mhm.
minute?
Absolutely.
Okay, in Preach My Gospel, if anybody has served a mission, right? Inside Preach My Gospel, there is literally a chapter, the language of the spirit. Okay, no, no, no. I'm sorry. There's not. Let me back up. There's a whole chapter on recognizing the spirit. I should look this up exactly because I know they've changed it. Anyway, details. There is a chapter on recognizing the spirit, recognizing the Holy Ghost, and then there is a chapter on a foreign language if you were to speak a foreign language. Well, on my mission, I was kind of bitter that I didn't speak a foreign language or get called to. I went to West Virginia. I love my West Virginians, you guys, okay, and my little Virginian folk. But I was a little bitter. But then I had a very strong prompting. Sarah, the strongest, most universal language that you can ever learn to hear is your spirit, is the spirit. Can you speak the language of the spirit? Can you speak language of spirit? And not even recognizing that, like the Holy Ghost spirit, right? Going through that, but like hearing and listening to all the ways that God is trying to speak to me. Can I recognize that language? Can I actually learn that language? That is a language that I have worked so hard to hear and to
Yeah.
listen and to attune to, because that's the language that we all universally speak, actually.
Yeah.
Just had to share
True,
that.
true. No, I fully agree. Fully agree. And I feel I had a similar experience on my own mission. Like I wanted to learn another language. I wanted to serve somewhere foreign because adventure.
Mhm.
And instead, my adventure took me to the Midwest of the United States. And I learned very different things than I would have if I'd been like bushwhacking somewhere in Africa, you know? But it's that idea of recognizing what that feels like and what truth feels like, and like that channeling of understanding, and how it feels in my body when something feels right and true. Like I learned that.
Mhm.
And also, I wasn't done learning it. There's more. There's a whole universe of ways that God can speak to us. And I just think we limit it too much
We do.
to one type of place.
We put it in a
There's
box.
way more. Like, I mean, cool. Yeah, that's that, sure. But also, don't take away all of the other opportunities I have to connect.
Mm, I love
Don't
that.
remove that from my possibility. That's not your job.
I love
But
that.
I have to give myself permission to claim it because
Mhm.
nobody else will.
Yeah.
Nobody else can.
Let me ask you this, Car, because we've talked about like the sacred in between. Okay.
Hmm.
How does one give permission to themselves when they feel unsupported, right? Whether it's by their husband, whether it's by their community, even in church. And I'm not necessarily just saying like, how do you fit in the in between of going to church and not going to church? Like, I can also answer parts of this too. But one of the questions from one of my recent reels was like, well, how is your husband accepting this new version of you and how you're dressing? And we've had to work on this, right? Like my husband and I have had little small pieces of separation because he's had to figure out what he wants. I've had to figure out what I want. But my you keep thinking about this question, but I will just say that it works if both of us are willing to do the work,
Yeah.
right? Like I've had to do my own work. Steve has had to do his own work in order for us to meet in the middle. A mixed faith marriage is not for a faint of heart. I will say that.
Amen.
It is so hard, absolutely hard. But yet, knowing who I am, knowing who Steve is, like it's something that we're learning to ride the waves with, wow, ride the waves with, and learning how to be more in alignment with each other instead of being like, I believe this, he believes this. Where are we both rooted this in? Anyway, I'm curious your perspective of that sacred in between how to navigate that with somebody who maybe doesn't support it or understand it.
That's a really good question. And I imagine it's very situational, but there is that moment. It's almost kind of like if you're standing, I don't know, if you picture like standing on a ladder and then deciding you're going to like, I don't know, fall on a trampoline or something. So you like let
Getting
go
truthful.
and release, right? Like depending on why you let go is going to determine how you feel on the way down.
Mm, mm-hmm.
Right. So I think some of it is contextual of why am I letting go? Was I forced to let go? Did I slip? Did I, whatever, or was it a planned release? And I think there is some of that that needs to kind of be taken into consideration when we talk about like how to deal with that. Because if it's a forced release or a push or a slip of some sort that was not intended to happen, that in between of being firmly on that ladder and landing on the trampoline is going to be very fear filled and very scary. And you maybe don't even know if something's down there to catch you.
Yeah.
You don't know what's there because you weren't planning on it. You didn't prepare for it in
Mm,
that way. And so honoring the fact that fear is 1,000% part of the process. And that's okay because fear can teach us. And also, there is a moment where you realize I'm falling and there's literally nothing I can do about it. I can choose to completely panic, or I can relax and see what I have available to me
mm,
on the way down, right? Like, and I realize that there's flaws in every analogy, just run with me here,
yeah.
right?
I'm here.
But like there's this moment of, oh no, it's too late. I can't go back to that. And also I don't know what's coming yet. And I
Yeah.
don't know how long this is going to take. And I don't know what landing is going to feel like.
Mm,
And
oh,
also being able to just surrender to the unknown
mhm,
and trusting that whatever comes next you can work with,
mm,
because everybody's story is going to look different.
yeah. Oh, I love that. It just kind of brought up, even in the article you mentioned again, of graduation, that it's
Mm,
like the other analogy that's coming to my mind is at graduation, and there's a lot of people who expect you to know, what does your future hold? What are you going to do for school? What are your next steps? We don't actually know, right? We're taking it day by day, moment by moment. And in fact, literally just this morning, I looked at Steve and I was like, hey, how are we going to do this? Like, how are we going to make this work? And he just looked at me. He's like, Sarah, minute by minute, day by day. And I'm like, you have a lot more faith than I do. And I just, obviously, both of our thresholds are low right now. Like, we've just had one thing on top of another. And it's that graduation that for me, I share in one of my Substack articles, like, I left the church not because of why people think I left the church. I literally left the church because there is a huge part of me that outgrew what I needed to learn there in the church. And what I was needing next for my next step of becoming was not going to be in the church. It's coming. I never show my kids publicly. So, um, anyway, oh, it's so beautiful. Will you go show daddy?
I love the real life.
Yeah, go show him it. It's so pretty. Um, anyway, it is that moment by moment, the graduation, and giving ourselves opportunity to just be curious and following. We may not have the answers, but what I can put my trust in is the ground beneath me, my foot,
Mm-hmm.
like one foot in front of the other, and allowing that to actually be enough and allowing it to be okay and allowing the uncertainty and the unknown. And I am not necessarily just looking ahead because I don't know what my path has in store, but I fully trust who I am and where I'm going. And I think that that is what God wants for all of us, is to have that confidence and have that trust, not just in a higher power, but in ourselves to navigate this world day by day, step by step, moment by moment, and letting that be enough.
I think you just hit on exactly what it is. Like, how do we find the permission? Like, we learn to trust ourselves.
Mm.
And wherever you're at right now is not going to be where you end up, right?
No.
So, what if there was a part of your path that took you back to where you were?
Great.
Maybe that will be, maybe it won't.
Mm-hmm.
But you get to be the driver of your own life as you co-create it with all of the other things that are happening with it. And I just think the more we can trust ourselves to know what the right path is for us and to be willing to change our mind, the more we bring to the table and the more wisdom we're going to have to make the next right choice.
Yeah.
So, do you trust yourself? And how do you gain that? Like, how do you build trust in yourself without ever trying things? How do you do it? I don't think you can. And I
Can't.
don't
You
think you
have to
can
be
build that trust
patient.
in a partner without having those conversations.
No, you
You
can't.
have to have them.
Mm-hmm. You have to have the crucial conversations. You have to have the hard conversations. You have to, because trust is the foundation of love. And I teach that
Hmm.
with every client, with in every container that I am in, people will hear me say, trust is the foundation of love. And we can work on our self love and we can work on our self trust. But if that trust is not a foundational blueprint for us, you won't grow to love yourself.
Yeah.
You really won't. So trust is the foundation of love. And it starts in those micro moments, the step by step, making a promise to ourselves and keeping that promise. It's not even outside of ourselves, which historically we've been taught give, do, right? Serve others. Only when you are in the service of your fellow being, you are in the service of your God. Um, but also it's for you too. That message is for you
Yeah.
too, right? The third commandment is to love yourself. Like, we forget that. The first great commandment is to love God, love your neighbor as thyself.
As yourself. Hmm.
Are we doing that? And where can we grow into that? Like, Carly, I just think that that's so beautiful, but it starts with the permission to expand, the permission to take the next step, even if you don't know where that next step is going to lead. It's okay to be uncertain. It's okay to follow the curiosity. It's okay to not know, and it's okay to cry through the storm. It's okay to dance in the storm. Like, give yourself permission to live,
Yeah.
be attuned with your instincts, what feels good in that moment. And that's what you need to do your next step.
Yeah.
Mm.
I would love for anybody who ends up listening to this to provide any thoughts or feedback or questions along the way and continue this conversation, because I think this is the work that both you and I feel very deeply called to in our own ways, right? Like, I have the hive where so much of what I needed spiritually was finding the women, finding the stories and seeing myself somewhere in that timeline. And so we get to be in sisterhood and study the women who came before us and the goddesses and the heroines and the queens in time and history. And it is so soul filling to me to do that with a group of women. And I'm so grateful to have that. And then also, you have your den. Do you
Mhm.
want to say a little about that?
Yeah, the den. I am so passionate about it because it's a sanctuary of peace, a sanctuary of, I'll say this, sacred provocateur. Like, it can be a sexy den, a sensual den, a den where you need rest, where you come to be replenished. My biggest offering, where I feel like everything just comes in, it's called urine caging, where we work through different instinct animal archetypes that work through nervous system, that work through sensuality, that work through of being an embodied leader that really hone in on deconditioning what is not you and figuring out what actually is you. Like, who are you underneath what everybody told you who to be? Who are you? And so the den really is just my healing place, my sisterhood. We have that sisterhood as well, that we just get to dive in and be like, let's see each other as each other really is. And I can't wait to see who is also evolving through you too. Anyway, it's a beautiful,
Absolutely.
beautiful place.
Hey, will you throw the link to learn more about the den and all of your other things in there so we can kind of see that? And I would love for anybody to ask any questions and follow us both here and on social media. On social media, I'm Wild Raven Breathwork, actually, which like I'll put that in there. Um,
If you guys just follow me on Instagram, then, and you can even say like, oh, I watched your Substack live. I can send you information too, but all my stuff
yeah.
is there.
Same, same. So, anyway, thank you for being here. Thank you, Sarah, for your words and face and energy and all of the things. I love every time I get to spend time with you. So,
I love
I'm here for
you.
all of it. But anything you want to say before we close up?
No, I just feel like we need a series. Like,
All right.
legitimately, I'm like, maybe we need to do a series of this, because there's not very many places you can get two nuanced people who can talk about the church with love and compassion and respect, while simultaneously taking what we've learned and sharing our evolution throughout everything.
Yeah.
So it's really refreshing. I feel like that's something that I've been trying to find and cultivate in community, because I don't love all of the anti-religion, anti-Mormon stuff. That's not in my innate spirit to be like that. Um, so yeah, so I just feel like it's very refreshing. Anyway, yeah.
Same. I feel the same. So, well, let's be in chats. And if those of you who are listening have particular topics or things you want us to touch on or conversations you want us to have, feel free to send those on. But thank you. Thank you for being here.
Love
And we'll
you.
be back with more sometime soon. So enjoy.
Bye.
All right. We'll see you later.